Hello and welcome to Spy Hard's podcast. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur, glittering like diamonds.
Oh, you are shining so brightly, Cam. And speaking of shining brightly, happy 4th anniversary of Spy Hard's one and all. Welcome to the celebration, and I think we found a great way of celebrating.
It's too bad we didn't hold off a little longer because I feel like the 4th anniversary is not the diamond anniversary.
No, I think we have a few more decades to get through before we get to the diamond anniversary. But I think
What is the 4 year?
the 4 year. I don't know.
It's like paper is like year 2 or something like that.
Charcoal. I don't know.
Oh, we got to go back and talk about. Oh my God, what was it called? The one where it was like dealing with coal and the Spanish Civil War.
It's Confidential Agent, Cam.
Of course, I should never forget. So I guess that, in theory, should have been our anniversary movie, but nonetheless.
Nonetheless, hey, we're celebrating the charcoal anniversary, and actually, what happens when you press coal?
What a great segue, because Scott, I can't think of a better way to celebrate 4 years of Spy Hard's podcasting than talking to the legendary Lana Wood, who, of course, played the iconic Plenty O'Toole in 1971's Diamonds Are Forever.
I mean, there's so much symmetry going on. Cam and I met in Las Vegas. We have a lot of love for the city of Las Vegas, and we have a lot of love for Plenty O'Toole, and even more love now that we've spoken to Lana Wood. There are so many stories to talk about, and I can't wait for you all to hear it. So let's get into the celebration. Cam, roll the dice and roll the interview. Whether it's Peyton Place, The Searchers, or of course Plenty O'Toole in 1971's James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever, you know her, you love her. Joining us now, the one and only Lana Wood. Hello.
Hello. I hope you love me. Well, even if 40% of you, that works.
That's more than us. So you're already beating us.
Yes.
It's wonderful to have you here. It's such a thrill to be speaking to you, Lana. I mean, I know I can speak on behalf of myself and Cam and the thousands of people out there listening, I'm sure, that we're just thrilled to just hear your voice and to hang out and talk a bit of Bond with you.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I love being with you guys. I'm very jealous that you're in London and Cam's in Vancouver and I'm in Los Angeles.
You've got an open invitation to London whenever you want to come by. I'll have a cup
All
of tea
right.
waiting for you.
All right. Oh, yeah, better.
Well, before we jump into Bond itself, I want to take it back a little bit, and I'm really just sort of curious, Lana, what made you want to get into this whole Hollywood acting thing anyway? Why did that come up for you?
It isn't, this is going to sound terrible perhaps, but it isn't so much that I wanted to get into it. It's all I knew. And therefore, as a child, when I was told this is what you're doing, and here's this, and learn these lines, and we're taking you to wardrobe fittings, you're like, okay. I never really thought about it. It was just what we did. It was the family. So, when I went on an interview like I did for The Searchers, I was actually very, very shy. And but all John Wayne was concerned with was, would he be able to pick me up because he had a bad back? So they chatted with my mom for a little bit, and John Wayne came over, picked me up, and said, "Okay, she'll do." And that was it. That was my gigantic interview. And then I did a lot of shows, Hallmark Hall of Fame and Playhouse 90, the sort of live television back then when I was a little kid. So I never questioned anything. I just sort of, that's what we do. That's what my sister does, and therefore that's what I'm told to do as well. So
was there ever a point, maybe when you became a teenager or beyond, that you kind of had other careers you considered, or was it always going to be acting?
Oh no, I always longed to be a marine biologist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I would have loved that, but I had to support myself. Yet, no, at at one point, I felt like I just wanted to stay in school and really not work anymore. And to do so, I actually had to run away from home. I told my mom, leaving for school, walked out the door, walked to the nearest phone booth. So, it was a long time ago. Um, Called my sister, and she said, wait there and I'll have RJ pick you up, her husband. And that was it. I ran away from home. I ran to Beverly Hills to my sister's house. And I stayed there for a couple of weeks, and she finally got my mother to calm down and say that, she would not send me out on anything, or, have my agents book me on anything, and I could just go to school and hang out. I wanted to smoke in the girls' room. I wanted to go to football games. I wanted to do all of the things that everybody else was getting to do. So I didn't work for a couple of years, 3 years. And then I got a job at a clothing store that was a very high priced place in Beverly Hills. And one day, Neil McQueen, Steve's wife, came in, and she
Mhm.
said, "Oh my goodness, what are you doing here?" Well, and we were chatting, and I knew her because she was a friend of Natalie's, and Natalie had worked with Steve McQueen. So she said, they're looking, the show Dr. Kildare is looking for a young girl who can look 14 but be over the age of 18. And she said, you've got to go on the interview. And I said, I don't know if I want to or not. And she literally got on her phone, talked to somebody. It was at the register counter. Um, Talked to somebody for a while, and then got off the phone and said, "You got an interview and you're going to go." So I was like, "Aha, okay." So, being a good little girl, I went on the interview and got the part. And when I worked, I remember leaving the first day, walking off the stage, and I thought, no, this is what I want to do. I do love this. I like the acting part. It was sort of everything else that I'd seen, the parties and I honestly was very shy. So it was all the other bits that I wasn't so fond of, but I loved acting.
Was there a role around that point that was one where you were like, okay, like now this is really interesting to me playing characters, along these kinds of lines?
Um Not really. After after Peyton Place had written out my character, I was still under contract to Fox Studios. So they were putting me on every single show they had going and everybody else had going. So I was just doing one television show after another after another. And I did one where I was the bad girl. And I loved it. It was so much fun because I got to step away from myself and literally pretend that I was actually hatching those plots and really did enjoy it and was really that nasty girl. And it was a lot of fun. So I did enjoy that.
It's when you said before you were really shy in real life. I couldn't equate that in my head. The Lana I have in my head is like not shy. It doesn't quite work.
Well, I think I went overboard later on. I became very outspoken and a little too relaxed, and uh oh dear. But yeah, I did get over my shyness. That's for sure. But it was a good thing. It was time to set that aside. It was difficult. There wasn't always a desk to hide under. I'm going to hide under the desk. No, no, no. You're going to go to work. Okay. Anyway.
Well, speaking of going to work, I mean, we're sort of looking at things you did before Bond, and I that's sort of on the horizon now in your career, and that's sort of the next thing I'm looking at. And I suppose leading up to 1971, were you aware of what was happening with the Bond films in the 60s and sort of Sean Connery and all that?
I had read all of the books,
Wow.
so I was an Ian Fleming fan. I loved From Russia with Love, and I thought Sean was absolutely sensational. And I had met him in London when I was visiting there one time, and with his wife Diane, and we all had dinner together, and so I knew him. So I thought, oh well, that's really swell. Um, but I wasn't aware of the fact that it would become such an enormous thing for me. I don't know why I didn't think so, but I didn't. I don't think I quite grasped what that would become.
And it's interesting, you talk about having read the books and that you wind up with a character who isn't actually featured in the book. So you didn't even have the benefit of research.
I know, I know. It's funny. I when my first day on the set, I went up to Guy Hamilton and I said, Guy, I need to talk to you because this is what I have in mind for Plenty. Is I wanted to speak in a higher voice, and I wanted her to be, you know, just a bit empty-headed. This is what she does for a living. She's not a bad person. She's a good person who does this for a living, kind of thing. And I kept on, and he said, Lana, whatever you want to do, just do it. And I said, really? Okay. So I sort of fashioned Plenty O'Toole in my head. And then many years later, I'm friends with Maud Adams. And I said to Maud, because she had worked with Guy Hamilton too, I said, I sort of feel, I said, in retrospect, I feel like he didn't care about Plenty, or, didn't really, it wasn't, he didn't give me any direction whatsoever. And I said, how was he when you worked with him? And she said exactly the same.
Hmm.
He was involved with, the stunts and the stuff, and everything laying out, and but he wasn't involved with the characters. She said, she had asked about that too, since she felt ignored. And she was also told that, Guy was very comfortable with who had been hired for the roles and had no problem.
So it was very much like cast the role and just rely on the actors. But I am curious, when you are going in for the role, how were they describing the character?
Um, I actually got a personal phone call from the writer, from Tom Mankiewicz. And he said, I'm working on the new Bond thing and doing the script. And he said, you are so perfect for a role in here. You've got to come in and meet with Guy Hamilton and Cubby Broccoli. And I said, okay, terrific. Wow, that would be really nice. And then he said, okay, and try to look tall. Yeah, well, I'm 5'2" if I didn't slouch so badly. So I didn't know what the heck to do. I got the highest heels I could possibly have found, and made made myself stand a little straighter and sat down really fast so they wouldn't notice what size I was. But yeah, I sat and chatted with them, and we had a really lovely time. Um, Tom had come in at one point, and we were in a bungalow on the Fox lot, and that was sort of that. And then I didn't hear anything for a bit, and got a phone call from my agent who said, they really, really, really love you. I said, well, thank you. That's wonderful to hear for, an actress who's stepping into such a big production. And he said they've run into a difficulty and was wondering if you would play a smaller role but still be in the film. And I said, I would play the busboy walking across the back with a load of dishes. I said, I don't care. I'd love to do it. I'd love to be in it. So there was born Plenty O'Toole.
Wow. Okay. So originally the concept was you were going more
Tiffany
of,
Pace.
yeah. Okay. I actually
Yeah.
didn't know that bit. Wow. Okay. And were you were aware of it being Tiffany at that point, and or was it more just we had a character in mind and then
We
would
had a
it?
character in mind, was
Right.
all I knew. And then, of
Mm.
course, later on, it seems that they had run into licensing problems and approvals from Las Vegas, from their film commission, and all kinds of rigmarole. And they were told that they would be happy to take care of everything, but they had a favor to ask, and that was, could Jill St. John please be in the film? That'd be greatly appreciated. Well, they're not going to say no, so they said absolutely. She's beautiful, and she's fine. Yep, she's in. So, and it's funny because I later learned that before Tiffany Case had been signed, they had decided on a Plenty O'Toole, an actress by the name of Phyllis Davis. And they called her and said, I'm sorry, but, this has come up and we really want this other person. But they continued to pay her for her contract. And she said she still gets residuals and everything, but she never got to be Plenty O'Toole. And she was so sweet about it. She was such a dear person. It was really nice. She said, you did a better job than I would have been able to. And I said, no, you don't know that. But she was very sweet, very pretty girl, very sweet. So it had some casting issues when they got going.
Well, you mentioned something I had in my notes to bring up, and that is the wonderful or crazy city of Las Vegas. Because Cam and I met in Las Vegas many moons ago, and we have a certain love for that city. But for you, in 1969, maybe 1970, when you're shooting it, what is Las Vegas like, and what was that life like?
70. See, my problem is, I don't gamble. I'm not a drinker. Even back then, I would have some wine with dinner, and that was about it for me. So there really wasn't anything for me to do. So I would keep shopping. I shopped a lot. I bought a lot of really terrific clothes. And then if they would say, you're off for 2 days, I'd fly home.
You and I are on the same page because I don't drink and I don't gamble, and I find myself in Vegas. Yeah, it's like shows and more of like the attraction stuff, but I don't know how much of that there really was in those days versus now, where it's much more of a, almost like theme park.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, it was very different then. And it also depended on who was playing where, if you wanted to see them. I know Sammy Davis was there at the time because he also had a cameo that he was doing in the film, and he was very sweet. I had a small, I don't know, mishap, I guess you'd call it, with my cat that I brought with me. And she ran across my face and scratched me on my cheek. And of course, that was, a calamity for everybody. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh no. So I picked up a pair of scissors from the makeup table and cut a piece of hair and got some eyelash glue, stuck it on my cheek. And I went, there you go. It's all covered. It's good. So you'll always see me with a curl on my cheek that was covering a cat scratch.
Well, I was going to ask you actually about just the styling of the character. And did you have a lot of input on perhaps wardrobe or just the general look of Plenty O'Toole?
No, they had in mind that she's, high class, but they had a certain sort of look for the entire film. I think you'll probably notice that. I'm sorry, I'm being kissed by a dog. Okay. Okay, thank you. Whoa, lots of kisses. Okay. Don Felt, who did the wardrobe, had Jill in very simple geometric sort of things. And he wanted to keep my lines very classic and simple as well, but I had to be a little bit over the top. So I didn't really have any input other than, is this okay? Do you like this? Is that okay? We can do this. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's good. The only thing I didn't like were the shoes. I said, these are the shoes? I said, she should be in stilettos with it wrapped around her ankles. And they're like, no, this is it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because they knew that I was going to lose them in the pool anyway. So I guess they didn't want to ruin a perfectly good pair of shoes.
Another name I didn't hear mentioned off the top was Sean Connery, because you mentioned you saw Guy Hamilton, you saw Tom Mankiewicz and Cubby Broccoli when you were first meeting for the film. But
right.
They had just come from having George Lazenby in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Was Was it pitched to you as a Connery film from day one?
Oh
Or
yes, oh yes.
okay,
No, they said Sean would be doing it, and I was delighted because, as I said, I knew him when I had been in London the last time. So I thought, oh, good, I've got one person on the set that I know. I won't feel quite so alone. And my cat, I have my cat. But yeah, I was thrilled that they always said that Sean was going to be doing it. So I was delighted.
and then from that point, then, so what was it like to actually get to work with Sean? Because it's one thing knowing him in London, going out for dinner and spending the evening together, but actually
Right.
getting to work against another actor is a completely different thing. So what was that sort of chemistry like?
Um, I thought the chemistry was very good. He was not in a terrifically happy place at the time that we were shooting. He had, some issues, personal things that were going on that he wasn't terribly jaunty jolly, and he was very definite about wrapping in time for him to go and hit golf balls or play a couple of holes. That came out wrong, didn't it? Okay, never mind. um but so it was very pleasant, but I felt that he was a little more withdrawn than the Sean that I met in London, and had gone to his house, but he was terribly, terribly sweet. We ran into each other just as I had gotten off the plane, and I was at the front desk of the hotel checking in, and he was walking through the lobby, and I had my finger stuck in the screening of my cat's carrier. So, and they were saying that my suite wasn't ready and that I would have to wait and this and that. And Sean was walking by and he said, "Put her in mine because I'm going off to work." And he said, "You take care of everything and just put her in my suite." So, which was very, very nice of him. So that was how I began as Plenty O'Toole.
And you've talked about, you saw her as a professional. I'm just curious about like backstory you'd come up with for the character yourself just to inform the performance.
Um, I really thought that she was a rather simple girl, but one that had been told, "Oh wow, you're really saying you've got a good figure. You've got you could make a lot of money in tips as a waitress." And she probably started off as a waitress until management got a hold of her and said, "Hey, listen, we've got this opening for a shill." But I didn't want to play her as that because I said that's not somebody that you want to bring home to mom. So I didn't want to play her as, overly sexy and a big come on and this and that. She just would show up at the crap tables and help somebody with and just she was fun and she was sweet and she was just doing a job. That was her job. And sometimes she'd like the people that she dealt with, and sometimes she wouldn't. And she was very upfront about that. So, yeah, I sort of saw Betty Boop and Lee Taylor Young
Oh,
sort of
okay.
combined. And that was my Plenty O'Toole, who had come to Las Vegas from Michigan. And she was delighted that it wasn't as cold. I mean, I don't know where she started from, but yeah, I saw her as probably, you know, um, she may have come there to go to school and then had to work to support herself and start out as a waitress and until she became a shill.
And that actually, I think, plays very well to the tone of the movie, which is the movie itself is like a very playful, light tone. And I think tackling the character from that, kind of angle works in favor of kind of the larger picture really well.
Well, thank you. I hope so, because that's something that I worry about in every single character I've done, but particularly Plenty O'Toole, is I just hope it worked because didn't want to be, I didn't want to be too over the top. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to like do a whole big come on to him because I didn't think that's who she was. Um, Uh, I'm glad you think it worked, but I question all those things all the time. It's terrible. It's terrible.
I would say it definitely worked for myself. I think there's a naivete to the character that really
Yes,
lends
yes,
itself to sort of juxtaposes some of the other people that are in this film, like these horrible henchmen they're out to kill Bond, stuff like that. You're kind of
right.
wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and sort of uh,
Yes.
arms wide open to the world.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I was trying to do. Uh, and it's funny. I even heard some rumors sometime many years later saying, "Oh well, that wasn't Lana Wood's voice. They had to dub her." No, that was my voice. It's called acting, and I spoke in a higher tone. So it's funny, but
I was going to ask about that because that is something you see a lot online, but it's no one can quite confirm it. So I'm glad you're setting that one straight. Was it a case like where there was a lot of like looping after the fact, or is it just completely out of nowhere?
no, none. No, there was no looping, because
Yeah.
we were in the casino. We weren't outdoors. I didn't say much when I fell into the pool. And I certainly didn't say much when I was dead in the other pool. So, being outside, there is sometimes a chance that might require looping. But no, absolutely nothing like that. I don't know. It's before Meryl Streep became hot. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not the what do you call those little keyholes on a tennis shoe. I'm not one of those on her tennis shoe. But I'm just saying, it was acting.
Well, the record is set straight then.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well, speaking of acting, I think a real loss to the film is a deleted scene that's out on the home video, which happens directly after you meet Sean Connery at the craps table, where you go out to dinner and there's a little bit of a tete-a-tete with you and a harpist walking by,
Yes.
and you get to do some actual like there's some you acting with your face, looking frustrated. And that unfortunately didn't make the film. I think it's a really wonderful scene. If people listening, go check it out on YouTube. It's there, or check your Blu-rays and DVDs. But any sort of recollection of shooting that scene?
Yeah, it all went well. My only problem was walking there was the difference in Sean's height and mine. So there were, various things they had to do. But the scene I thought was terrific and went perfectly. But when I fell over in a dead faint after seeing that they'd cut it and
Mm-hmm.
immediately got on the phone and said, "What happened?" Um, Guy said it slowed down the plot. He said something had to go. We had to keep it to a certain time for for viewing purposes, and he said it didn't really mean much to the plot, so it went. But I was really disappointed. Really disappointed. Ah,
Yeah, because there's that scene, and then also the moment where you go back into the hotel room after being thrown into the pool. Was there anything else that was shot that was cut, or is that basically the entirety of it?
um, the walk to the Dome of the Sea. There was a bunch of dialogue there. I'm trying to remember. Um, I'm going to Tiffany Case's house.
Mm.
That was shot. It was shot in while we were in Palm Springs doing the dead Plenty O'Toole in the pool. So going into her house and sitting in her bedroom and seeing all the wigs and
Oh.
slipping on a wig and putting that down and drumming her nails because she didn't know when she'd be home. We never shot anybody coming in and actually, killing me, tossing me into the pool,
Right.
tying up my ankles. That was really interesting. It was a really a feat of fine technology in doing that drowning scene because to do it, what they did is they got some rope and they got a rebar that was in a big chunk of cement and they put that in the water and they tied my ankles to it.
Very high tech. Good to know
Very.
that there was, I'm sure, a lot of safety boxes being checked there. Was there people in the pool with you, like divers or anything?
No, cameraman. The cameraman was in there, but yeah, they actually they had a guy on one side of the pool and then the other side with a rope. And when I would hear the camera stop going, I would grab the rope and clear my nose and mouth for breathing purposes. And oddly enough, it's funny how long something that simple would take, but it did take a long time. I was in the water for a while, and nobody really noticed, myself included, that the cement block was slipping down deeper and deeper in the pool. And at one point, I went to grab for the rope, and I couldn't clear my face. So somebody jumped in and untied me, and that was that. And they said, "Okay, that's it for the day."
Wow. Well, you were a trooper, that is for sure.
Well, that was back then. Actually, no, I think a lot of people do their own stuff. I mean, I jumped off a 10-foot platform on the shoulders of a 6-foot tall stuntman. So that was not fun.
Well, that was actually going to be the next thing I was going to ask about. So this is at the hotel, I think, when you're thrown out the window.
Yes, yes. That was at the hotel.
Okay, so how was that shot done? What parts were you?
They literally built a makeshift platform that was a good 10 feet. And then the stunt man uh, climbed up on that. They had a ladder up, and he climbed up on that. And I went after, and he steadied me on his shoulders and put his hand on my bottom, and he would push me upward so that the fall looked realistic. And that's how that was shot. And then coming out the window, the first 3 feet was me. Well, actually, just going out the window was me, because they had there again a lot of technology. They were shooting on a first floor of the hotel, and they had a mattress outside of the window. So they took me out the
Ah.
window and landed on the mattress. They then said that they had used a mannequin, a dummy, a soft dummy for some of the fall directly from the window, and the rest of it was me.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, because I was never quite sure because there's the cut when you pop out of the water. And
Yeah,
so I wasn't sure if like you had done the fall into the actual pool.
actually, I've noticed people are sending me clips from the film where you can see me falling, but you can see me from behind, thank heaven. But you can tell it's me. I mean, by the body structure. But yeah, those crop up all the time, so you can see that it is me falling
Hmm.
I mean, how many times were you dropped into that pool?
twice, and it was too many. The
Oof.
problem with doing a second take or even any take after that was for a couple of things, actually, because they had to dry my hair,
Mm.
reset it, warm me up, make sure my makeup's all fine to do a second take. So that was a pain in the neck. But they told me how to land and what to do, and I was fine with it. So we got it on the second take. Thank heaven. Because it's funny that those 16 feet fall, I never want to do that again. Never, ever. It seemed like I was falling and falling and falling and falling. And I knew there was water down there somewhere, but I sure was hoping to reach it fast. So it seemed like a very long time.
Well, it's funny because, you had this, the smaller role in the film, but I feel like you kind of got the entire Bond experience in some ways. You got to do kind of the light, flirty banter stuff with Connery, but you also got to do a lot of physical work as well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, it was fun. I adored it. I absolutely adored it.
Well, the only other bit I wanted to ask about instead of like technical scenes and making of scenes is the bit before you're thrown into the pool was you and Sean in the bedroom.
Yes.
There's a little bit of that, a little, you're having a little bit of fun, getting a bit intimate. But what was that bit like to shoot? Because there's certainly like a power dynamic going on there, especially in like late 60s, early 70s. You're not wearing a lot.
No,
How was that like for you? Was it comfortable? Did it take care of you whilst you were doing that?
I was not comfortable. I was a nervous
Mm.
wreck. The wardrobe lady, who was adorable, she said, "You got to relax. It's not a big deal, and this and this and that." And she said, "Would you drink some brandy?" I said, "Anything." So she went and got a little shot of blackberry brandy, which was very sweet and didn't taste like anything. And I took a shot of that, which I don't think helped. But anyway, I had hoped it would. But I almost felt like somebody was looking through a keyhole, and I didn't like it. Do you know what I mean? It felt a
Yeah.
little bit too personal.
Mm-hmm.
And it really made me very nervous. I didn't care for it.
Have you ever been made aware of the edits that were made to the scene when it was broadcast internationally?
No, I don't think so.
You've been digitally altered.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they've covered you up.
How so?
Like they've put like a crop top on you on the top half.
You're kidding.
No,
Oh, how
no.
funny.
It's the shots of you from behind when you're walking into the hotel room. It's all
Right.
like they've sort of superimposed a bra onto you or something like that. Very
Oh,
strange.
that's hysterical. Yeah. You know what? I do recall getting a phone call from a reporter, I thought from the network where it was going to be shown. And she asked me, how did I feel about the fact that there was, all this to do over my being in a pair of transparent panties. And I'm trying to remember what the heck she said, but I remember at the time there was something dreadful going on in the world, like there
Mm.
isn't now, but nevertheless, there was something dreadful going on. And I said to her, I really don't care. What I care about is what's going on right now. And I have nothing to say. I said, it's entertainment. I don't care what they do. So but I never saw it. So they put what, a black bra?
Yeah, basically. I'll send you a photo after so you can take a look.
Okay,
It's
let's
it's
do that.
crazy. It's crazy.
That's funny. I hope I had matching panties.
It does not match. I'm sorry. They've let
Oh,
you
well,
down. They've let you down.
if at least they could have matched them. They could have blackened the panties. Oh well.
Mm.
Next time.
Say la vie. Say la vie.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've mentioned like scenes and sort of moments that we saw as the audience watching the film. But making a Bond film takes a long amount of time, and there's a lot of hanging around on set and talking to
Yep.
people and waiting around and making memories. So just sort of casting your mind back, is there any sort of moments that jump out to you thinking back to filming Diamonds Are Forever? Just sort of hanging out with the cast, things like that.
Not really. Um, it was all very businesslike. It was sort of, the cast didn't really hang out because I was basically only with Sean.
Mm.
Um, so it was more of my hanging out with the wardrobe lady, the makeup guy, the crew. I would hang out with them because that's who I was with. And then after filming and after Sean's golf, if he got to or not got to, we would go to dinner, but that was about it, and we didn't have anybody else come with us. So
And if not, you're off shopping, basically.
yeah, shopping, shopping, shopping.
A big part of the kind of the experience of being in a Bond film is the promotion that comes afterwards. I was just curious if you had any memories of that part of the experience.
Oh, I had lots there because they sent me all over the world, like
Mm-hmm.
seriously, all over the world. It was grueling. I had a row with some of the people at a television station in Tokyo because I had my TV on as I was getting dressed and getting ready to go there, and they showed dolphins coming up to these paddle boats and them being gaffed and pulled up bloody and bleeding. And
Ugh.
I was told it was for dog food. So I, of course, went absolutely stark raving mad and got there and decided that I refused to do the promo for this channel. But it really upset me. It really, really. I know they didn't have anything to do with it, but the fact that it was even run at the time got
Mm.
to me. And then in Munich, I had a slight altercation. My goodness, feisty I am.
See, I don't see you as shy. That's the thing.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. Um, I had to go to the theater where they were opening the film and go up on stage and wave hello and this and that. And then I was told by all the people that were schlepping me around that the owner of the theater, his son, would like to have dinner with me, along with so and this and that. And so it was a large group. So I said, fine, okay, great. So they took me to this restaurant. We were sitting at this large table and everything was fine. And then this fellow started saying how Americans are mutts. We're just mongrels and we have no tradition and we have no heritage and we don't even know, what our mothers and fathers were. And I got very upset and told him that my mother and father were both Russian.
Mm-hmm.
And though I was born in the United States, I know exactly what my heritage is, and it's Russian. And I was furious, and I said, if you talk to some other people, I think you'll find that they absolutely know what their heritage is, and that we all came to America is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't mean that we're Mongols. And it just really made me angry. So I got up and said, I want to go back to the hotel. So off I went.
That's not the best party chat. Yeah.
No, no, good for you for sticking up for it too. And yeah, I know a lot of North Americans, and there is a shared lineage. I know I'm European, but a lot of it
Right.
come from here. And you want to know that history. It's good to know, and to be proud of too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if, and if you say I'm Welsh and Russian and Italian, there's a little bit of Scots in me. How terrific.
Hmm.
How lovely. But, I don't see I was annoyed that he was calling Americans mongrels and mutts.
Sure.
Oh boy, this is not going to sit well with me.
Did England treat you well at least?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Nothing nasty run in any of the papers. Well, wait a minute.
Oh no.
Was what? No, 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 no. I've forgotten. I've tossed it aside. It's all good. Yeah, no, I always have a wonderful time in when I'm in the UK. Really fun time, and I'm usually with other Bond girls, as I still will refer to myself. I'm not a Bond woman. I'm a Bond girl. Damn it.
Well, that's a question right there. How does the moniker of being a Bond girl feel for you? Are you proud of it, and how has it sort of affected you?
Absolutely, I'm proud of it. I'm so delighted to have been a part of that.
Mm.
I'm very proud of it. I'm delighted. The two films that mean a lot to me are The Searchers and Diamonds Are Forever. Um, I may have been better in other things, but playing different characters and things. But those two films um, mean a great deal to me. I feel like they're classics that will always be there.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm very proud to be a Bond girl.
Yeah, and I mean, both have really stood the test of time. I mean, and are continued to be watched constantly. And I was actually just going to quickly looping back there. Just curious if you had any memories of working with John Ford on The Searchers.
John hated children.
That
Hated.
doesn't surprise me. I don't know
No,
why.
made no bones about it. Couldn't stand them. I annoyed him to no end. Um, the only thing he directly spoke to me were, "Can't you bend from the waist?" And I said, "Yes, I think I can." Oh boy. So it was the scene where I'm telling the dog to go back to the house, and he didn't want me to simply point with my finger. He wanted me to bend from the waist for some reason. And I think at that point, after he said that, I think I became a pillar of salt. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't think I could have bent at the waist if you had said they'd pay me more. Nothing. Give me the dog. I still couldn't bend. I was not terrifically happy. That terrified me. But that's a set that, yeah, I hung out on a lot because my mom was with my sister, so I was left to my own
Mhm.
devices, and I would spend them on the set. And Ken Curtis used to whittle little animals and cars and things and give them to me. He would just pick up a stick of wood and start whittling. He was adorable. Jeffrey Hunter is like it was an angel. He was
Hmm.
my angel on the set because he was actually everybody was nice to me, but he would literally sit down on the ground and sit and talk to me, and not about how did I feel the scene was going. Did I asking me how I felt and
Hmm.
what was I doing? You feel comfortable here? Is there anything that you need? So what shows do you like? What do you watch? What do you do? What do you think? I mean, he was just wonderful. He was wonderful. I'll always remember the amount of time he took to be with this disgusting little 8-year-old girl.
And the interesting thing about The Searchers was just how, like, it did well, but over time really amassed this just classic status. I'm just
Yep.
curious, like, when you kind of became aware that the movie had kind of raised up the echelons to become something really, really, truly beloved.
Um, well, obviously it wasn't until many, many years later. And I think just when I began traveling so much,
Mm.
I became aware of the fact that wow, The Searchers is really so beloved. And so as you say, it's a classic. It's just a
Hmm.
worldwide classic. Um, yeah, it was amazing to be on that set. I remember it's funny because I can remember every single little thing off that shoot more than I can a lot of other stuff. I remember the dust. I remember Ward Bond being bitten by a scorpion and somebody yelling, "Get the kid off the set." So they hustled me off really, really fast. We had a sandstorm. We were stuck in the room where we were all eating, like this sort of cafeteria thing, um, staying above a trading post, and the water running orangey when you first turn on the tub until the sand would get out of the system, and hearing Indians chant in the evenings. It was quite amazing. It was really amazing. Natalie getting sunburnt. That was something else. But
Right.
um, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing that, and it's a beautiful film. I mean, it's
Hmm.
seriously a beautiful film. I remember the first time they started making Blu-rays. They said what you must watch to really enjoy a Blu-ray is go ahead and buy a Blu-ray and watch The Searchers.
Hmm.
So I remembered at the time reading that and saying, "Wow, hey, I'm in that." So it was wonderful.
Yeah, I've seen some 4K restorations on the big screen as well. It always just looks absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, 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 it does. I know the Academy ran a whole evening where they ran the restoration, and I was there, and Pippa Scott, and oh my goodness, a couple of people who were left. Patrick Wayne did not show up, although I ran into Patrick not too long ago, and
Hmm.
so we had fun chatting. But yeah, it was really the restoration is stunning. It really is stunning.
And I wanted to ask just like a question, kind of moving back to Bond, sort of tangentially related, but you did an episode of The Fall Guy where you played yourself and
Yes,
were paired up with Britt Eklund and Joanna Pettit. And I'm
right.
just like curious how that kind of came to be and how much like was it enjoyable like working with the two other Bond girls, finding some camaraderie there.
No.
Oh,
Next question.
oh, okay then.
Joanna was very sweet. Um,
Right.
she was very sweet, and I found it really strange to be doing a show where I had to be myself because I am always doing other people. Suddenly I had to be me. So
Yeah.
that was a little tough. That was I don't remember what the heck I ended up doing. Um, Probably something ridiculous. I've never seen it. So
Okay. Yeah, they often say that's one of the toughest things is to actually try to play yourself.
yeah. Oh no, it's murder because I don't know who that is. Other than I do more so now. Now I know that I'm ridiculous most of the time. But yeah, it was fun, but
Well,
very odd.
Okay.
speaking of TV, because we talk about spy stuff here, not just Bond, we go beyond Bond. There's a couple of little things you jumped into. For instance, you were in an episode of Mission Impossible back in '72, not long after Diamonds. And I'd be remiss if I didn't just ask about working with the Mission team.
Oh, I love them. I absolutely love them. Now, that was a set where the entire cast hung out all the time. And we had an ongoing heart game that we played for money.
Wow.
They said to me the first time I on the set, I was walking by and I see, all these people lined up on the table and around the table. And they said, "Do you play hearts?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Great, sit down. Here's a seat for you. Nickel a point and a quarter for the queen." I had no idea what they meant, but I grew to love it. It's like I couldn't wait to go and sit down and play hearts. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I had a dog with me at that time. No cat, but I had my dog. And actually got a photo of myself in the jail cell, standing on the bed and looking out the bars. And my poor little dog, I guess at that point, missed me too much. And she found me and she jumped up and curled up at my feet. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh boy, I'm so glad the camera's on the other side of this wall, shooting this way and not the other way. They probably would have killed me. But anyway, yeah, it
I've
was
got to
yeah,
see that photo.
it was a lot of fun.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Red alert, Spyhards, we are shaking things up over on the Patreon page.
That's right, we are launching an exclusive new show where we tackle the exploits of the small screen's greatest secret agents, like Jack Bauer, George Smiley, and beyond.
And don't forget, every month you also get 2 Agents in the Field episodes where we decode the adventures of your favorite spy actors in their biggest non-spy movies. But Cam, tell the people what we have coming up next.
Seeing as how Scott and I are partying it up in Las Vegas at this very moment, now is a perfect time to catch up with our big July episodes. That's right, reviews of Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron and X2 X-Men United, as well as, of course, our coverage of the 1992 Lifetime TV movie remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious.
So don't get left out in the cold. Help support your favorite spy movie podcast and join the circus at patreon.com/spyhards. But before this message self-destructs, let's get back to the spy jinx. And then the only other one is a little bit before Diamonds, but you had a couple of episodes on Wild Wild West.
Oh, I love that. I loved Wild Wild West. That was really fun to do. Really fun because I got to play light comedy. So that was something new for me, and I really liked it. And I knew Bob Conrad very well. He was a family friend, so I was always very comfortable. Although he thinks he can do things that I don't like to do, he got me on a horse and he had to race it downhill. And I said, "So help me, I will kill you. I'll destroy your reputation if I fall off this horse." I was so miserable. And he would do it and he would laugh. He just thought it was so funny. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing Wild Wild West.
You must have gotten more comfortable with horses because you did Justin Morgan Had a Horse, the Disney film, which I've seen actually. I watched it not so long ago, actually.
Right. Yeah, I got very comfortable with him. I also did a film called Gray Eagle, and at the end, I'm supposed to be riding on a horse, racing to home where my dad Ben Johnson was waiting, and so I didn't have a saddle. I hung on to the mane, and it had reins, and they said just take off fast as you can, go. And evidently, unbeknownst to me, the horse stumbled on a hole, and the director said, Charlie Pierce said, everybody like gasped, saying, "Oh my God, she's going to fall." But I hung on there and got back. Yeah, I really, really love horses. Absolutely love them. Incredible creatures. I had one of my own for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Beautiful chestnut quarter horse. He was awesome.
Now, I'm seeing a theme. Obviously, you're an animal lover, but I want to just circle back to wanting to be a marine biologist when you're young, because I remember reading the book Meg Hell's Aquarium and being absolutely dumbfounded when your name came up in that book.
Yeah.
And I have read it was somewhat because of a love of kind of the genre with your grandson. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I was called and asked, was it okay if they did this? And I said, yes, but you've got to put my grandson in it too. So Max is in the book, which I loved. I really thought it was a hoot. I just love it.
And have you had like contact with Steve Alton, the author of that book series, over the years at all, or
All
was
the
it just kind of
time,
like a one-off
yeah.
thing? Oh,
Oh
okay.
no. He's really a dear man.
Hmm.
He flew me and Max out years later to the museum. It's somewhere in Arizona, Phoenix, I think, somewhere. Anyway, we flew out there, and I've got a picture. I was standing in the jaws of a megalodon and promoting what was going to become his film from the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun. I took Max with me, and yeah, it was cool. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He really is a lovely, lovely man. Very, very kind.
I'm very envious of getting to stand in the mouth of the megalodon.
Oh yeah.
Jaws. That's incredible. That is an all-timer. That is the best profile photo ever.
Yeah, I still have it on my phone. I adore it. Yeah, no, I was a certified scuba diver.
Mm.
So I took my classes and did a beach dive. I never did a deep sea dive, but I had to leave to do a film, and I had lied to them when I went on an interview. They said, can you scuba dive? And I said, absolutely. I walked away and went, oh my God, find a teacher quick. So I would spend a lot of hours in my sister's swimming pool with my scuba teacher, learning quickly how to scuba dive. But then I adored it. It's a wonderful feeling. It really is quite terrific.
Isn't that sort of the actor's trick? Always say you know how to do something?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Lie. How do you feel about? Oh, crazy about it. Just dream come true.
You've made Cam's day because he's a massive shark fan. So any sort of talking
Really?
about megalodons, he's a very happy man.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. No, I watch every single anything having to do with sharks. Anything. I really do love them. I think they're again quite fantastic, and I'm very envious of the people that get to spend a lot of time with them and studying them and studying the other beasties we have in the water. I feel like there's so much that we don't know about our ocean. Heaven only knows what other creatures there are, as we certainly haven't explored it much.
Mm-hmm. No, very true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I am also just obsessed with watching shark documentaries and anything involving sharks, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess that's the one downside with your Bond experience was you didn't get to be in one of the Bond movies with sharks.
I know. That would have been great.
Mm.
That would have been great. I told them on the set when we were doing the dying scene with the rope across the pool. I said, get me a tank with a little regulator on it. And I said, and I'll stay underwater. I'll just, I can breathe through that. So they discussed that for a minute and said, no, we're done. We're done for the day. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But yeah, no, I just adore the ocean. A true Piscean.
Lana, you haven't stopped working. You are still going today, and the question I have for you is, taking Plenty O'Toole to one side, what is the role that you are most proud of that you think you got to sort of really show your acting skills that people should go and check out after listening to this?
I was put on the ballot for an Emmy for QB7, which I did with Ben Gazzara. He was my my acting partner in that, and it just to be in that film, I lost an entire very significant agency who said, if you accept that, then we're going to drop you because the role's too small. And I said, don't care. I said, I want to be in that group. I want to be in the same film with Anthony Hopkins and Ben Gazzara and Juliet Mills. I said, no, I'm gone. See you guys. But that meant a lot to me. As far as other characters, I don't really know. I would have to give it a lot of thought. I really would, because I've done so many. I don't know. Perhaps that role is still to come.
Mm-hmm.
I know my buddy who I've done 4 films for is DJ Perry. I spoke with DJ the other day, and he said, "How are you walking?" Because I have arthritis. And I said, I'm okay." He said, "You can walk." I said, "Yep, I can walk." And he said, "Okay, I'm gonna get back to you." So I don't know. He may have something cooking, but yeah, no, I sort of stopped, and I went into production, the production side, and adored it. But I won't go into that too much. So I had to stop that, and I started writing. Of course, it was, losing my sister was just sort of, I won't compare it to any other tragedy, but it was for my entire family. I mean, everything changed. Everything changed. So that was a bit of a shock, and so I wasn't producing TV films anymore, but at least I got a couple of them out there. And then I wrote the first book on Natalie, which was more a story of Natalie's and my life together growing up. It was rather lighthearted. I changed a lot of people's names. I didn't, call anyone out or do anything. I was being very, very cautious. Did whitewash things, but that's what I wanted to do. And then years later, the agony of Natalie's horrible passing got to me, and I became involved in getting the case reopened, and then writing after working with the wonderful detectives they had on the case, who were really, really heartbroken when they said, the district attorney turned us down saying there's still no smoking gun. And they have so much. So I wrote about it, hoping that people would at least see this is not, that it was not my opinion. It was not anybody's opinion about what happened to her. It was what the captain told me. It was what Baywatch told me. It was what was told to me by the new coroner, what was told to me by the detectives, obviously, and a couple of other people. It was nothing but facts, and pretty or not, that's what I wanted to tell everyone. So, but that's a real sore spot. Let's go back to Jaunty Jolly. No, it's something that means a great deal to me, and I think always will. Always will.
It's an interesting one to look at, and I mean, I was just looking at the 2 books you had out. You had one out a couple of years ago, Little Sister. That's
Yes.
the more recent one, right?
Right, that's the one I'm talking about. That is not, anyone's opinion, and it's not stories, and it's not I heard somebody say. That's the one that's just totally factual.
Yeah, and you said like, oh, let's go back to the fluffy. I mean, this is part of your life. This is part of the fabric of your life, and I know it. People will come to hear the Diamonds Are Forever stories, but
Yeah.
your life is for me far more important in the sense of what constitutes you, and this is an important story that you want to get out there. So putting the sort of warts and all, if you will, story out there is
Yeah.
important, and you're your sister's champion.
I am trying to be. I really am trying to be. And yeah, I always will be. I'm very sorry that members of on her side can't realistically look at things. You know, it's the old story about, oh no, he would never do that. Yeah, he would. People would. We do have a dark side, everyone. And I think if you're pushed far enough, bad things can happen, not because you're meaning them to, but because you lose control. So, you know, it's a big part of my life. So it has colored most everything I've done. Everything.
Well, I mean, I've got 4 brothers
Oh,
myself, a big family, and you know, I'd like to think that if anything happened to any of them, I could be half the advocate for them that you were for your sister.
oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sure you would, you know, when it's your family. Oh my God. And the only sister, the only, you know, I was not close to my mom. I was not close to my dad. I was close to Natalie. So
Yeah.
it was really brutal. And then a couple of years later, I lost my only daughter. So it was quite jarring as well. And that really upset the rest of the family too. So we're sort of, you know, emotionally hanging on to each other.
But you've got that.
Well, I've got, you know, 3 grandchildren that rely upon me, and I want the best for them. I want to make they're okay.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but I'm trying everything I can, and I'm not going to let the thing about Natalie drop. I won't.
No. No. I mean, I did have a sort of final question for you, Lana, but I want to take an opportunity just a second just to sort of say that apart from it being just an absolute pleasure just to speak to you, and I mean that in all earnest.
Oh, thank you.
And I know you know the Bond film can be seen as a little bit, you know, light and fluffy, and that's what they are. They're entertainment. But
Right.
you and your character and your performance mean a lot to a lot of people. And that's just one of the films that you've done. And so I just wanted to say that I'm so proud to have this chat with you, so happy that we could spend this time together. And, you know, just wanted to say to you that it is, even if could be a bit fluffy, it's wonderful and it still means stuff to people now. People are still writing about it, watching it, discussing it, and want to hear you talk about it.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that means the world to me. Seriously. That really means a great deal. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Well, we thank you, quite literally.
Yeah,
and I suppose my final question, and this question has been asked to everyone we've ever had on the show, Bond girls galore. They've all answered it, and so you're joining those proud ranks now.
Okay.
And a lot of people hate this question, so I'm just prefacing. And there's been no prep for this, folks. This is live.
Yep.
Lana Wood. We talk about spy movies here on Spy Hards every week. So the question for you is, what is your favorite spy movie of all time?
Ooh. Wow. I think it's probably a toss-up between Manchurian Candidate. I like The Night Manager.
Yeah.
I like that. There are so many that I really do adore. That's what's in my dreams. Seriously, I'm not kidding you. When I dream, I'm a spy. There are people out to get me. I'm running here. I'm getting there. I'm getting on trains. There are people, and I'm getting around, and I form these alliances in different places. And oh no, it's great. I love going to sleep because I know I'll have a nice spy dream. Um,
We do the
I
same
just,
thing.
I really do. I love it. Um, wow. I'd have to revisit. Um, what are yours?
Well, it's so, I mean, we've tackled so many at this point, it's tough to narrow down, but one that ranks
Yeah.
very high with us is North by Northwest. We,
Ah,
I will say, you are the first person, I think, to the best of my memory, to say Manchurian Candidate as
really?
your favorite. I think so, which is crazy because we have not covered it yet on the show, but I've seen it several times, and it is one of the best in the genre. So I think you are hands down correct in that choice.
Yay! I won. I won.
There's a lot of people listening that are very happy with that choice, I have to say.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
I'm
Great
delighted.
choice. Lana, you've struck gold there. Or
Uh,
diamonds, perhaps.
Diamonds, yes,
Oh,
because
boom.
they're forever.
Quite so. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, Lana. I wish you all the best. And I'm looking forward to what comes next for you.
Thank you. I hopefully I'll do a really terrific fun role and let everybody know about it. And I thank you, Scott, and thank you, Cam. And this has been a great pleasure and a wonderful, a wonderful bit of time spent. Thank you.
Pleasure was all ours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go, Cam. What a way to celebrate 4 years of Spy Hard's podcast and talking to the one and only Lana Wood. I can't believe it happened.
Scott, there are some interviews that when you are taking part in them, you just know they are a home run. Some you don't know. Some you get to the end and you're like, oh, I think that was pretty good. And then you listen back and go, oh, no, we got a lot of great stuff there. This one was fun beginning to end. Lana was a great sport. You can hear a lot of laughter in this interview, and it was all organic. This was just genuinely a pleasure beginning to end.
Pleasure is the optimum word. I mean, I can't think of a more generous and bubbly person to spend an hour with than Lana. I mean, she opened up about so many things when it comes to Diamonds Are Forever and other movies that we spoke about too, which I'm keen to tackle with you and talk a little bit more about. And I think in a little while, maybe we'll just sort of talk about 4 years of Spy Hard's podcasting as well. But let's kick it off. You know, back 4 years ago, when we started doing these interviews, I remember you saying, I just would love to talk to a Bond girl.
Yeah.
I think we probably said something similar to this when we had Denise Richards on. That when that happened, I don't think we quite envisioned that we would get there. And I think I feel the same way about this chat with Lana. I didn't think I would get to speak to Plenty O'Toole of all people.
I remember when you got Rachel Grant to come on the show and talk to us. And I was like, okay, shut it down. There we go. We did it. I have nothing more to say. I think we've kind of hit all the various tick boxes I could ever dream of on this podcast. I don't dare dream bigger than this. And I mean, we've just come so far. And yeah, this was, again, there's something about talking to one of these icons because these are Bond movies I had seen so many times.
Yeah.
Over the years. And as much as I enjoy going back to Die Another Day, which Rachel Grant appeared in, that was a newer one in my life. I watched that in my 20s, right? Versus like a lot of these other Bond movies. These are movies I grew up on and just watched over and over and over. So to have Lana Wood here talking to us about all her experiences, shooting this legendary role, it was surreal. And I've said this before. I said it with Denise Richards. I said it with some of the other ones as well. It's always kind of a surreal experience when they're on the show. But this one to me just, maybe because whenever we, kind of wander into the older era, when we're talking to Luciana Paluzzi or Bruce Glover, there's something about reaching back to that time, which even precedes me. It's before, because Roger Moore is kind of the era I'm watching versus those Connery films come before that. They feel more like movie history to me, even though they were only a couple years before the start of Roger Moore.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it feels like we're reaching back. And so to hear these stories is always just, it's head spinning for me.
Head spinning, yeah, absolutely. And I would just add, Lana's always been generous with the Bond fans. She attends conventions and things like that. And I go to a lot of conventions. I met you at a convention, and I've heard people like, William Shatner, for instance, tell the same stories on repeat again and again and again until they lose focus and interest.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like they're just recycling anecdotes. I didn't get a sense of that here. Lana clearly loved what she did, and it comes through in the chat, I'd like to think.
Well, I mean, some of the anecdotes she talks about, for example, the shooting the drowned in the pool scene. She talks about that on the special features for the Bond DVDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the energy she brings, and there was new details. There was bits of information we didn't know. And so it felt like every story that, even the kind of the ones that people may have heard before, there was new details, there was new information, and they just felt like you were hearing them for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned how she was altered in some of the alternate versions overseas, and they like added underwear to her in that scene, and she had never heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was blown away when she said that, like, she was not dubbed in this movie. That was her doing a voice. And that's the sort of information that I feel like has been completely rewritten in the record, where people just talk about the dubbing of Plenty O'Toole. But, I mean, there she was to set the record straight.
That's a direct source if I ever did see one. I think unequivocally you can say that she voiced herself in Diamonds Are Forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's talk about some of our personal highlights. And I really loved just sort of hearing about her process of getting the role. I knew she had casted for Tiffany Case, which obviously eventually went to Jill St. John. But it goes to talk to that sort of family atmosphere that Eon had and have had for a very long time, where they loved her, and to the point of they got her in for the Plenty O'Toole role and actually got rid of an actress called Phyllis Davis. And had Lana Wood come in and take that role. They loved her performance so much in that casting session. They wanted to keep her in the family. And that's just, it speaks to the passion that they have as, I would say, as filmmakers, because they knew they had something good.
Yeah, and Phyllis Davis, for those that don't know, very popular on TV in the 70s and 80s, but maybe best known for appearing in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which Roger Ebert famously wrote and Russ Meyer directed. Mm-hmm. So you can understand how that movie might lead into her being up for Plenty O'Toole on Diamonds.
Yeah, absolutely. But it goes to show that her passion for the role came through, and she won out in the end, and she's now a part of spy movie history.
Yeah, and she talks about the backstory she created for Plenty O'Toole and the frustration she had with scenes that were deleted, because she clearly cared about the character and approached it from the point of view of, like, I need to know who this individual is if I'm going to be playing her on screen, which, she kind of said that they didn't care so much.
No.
Like Guy Hamilton was focused on the stunts and the action stuff, and so it was more like she had free reign to do what she wanted to do with the character. But a lot of the effort that was coming forth in terms of making that character pop on screen was her own investment in trying to make this work, which, go across the history of Bond. There's plenty of characters that pop up, I'm sure, didn't have that level of thought put into them.
No, I think that's all you can really ask for from any actor, that they're invested in the thing that they're working on. And, the Bond films were pretty legendary by this point anyway, so she knew she was in a big production. She had to make it count. And I think she really did, shoot her shot, if you will.
And this was also Connery's comeback movie, so it would have had even more prestige attached to it as well, yeah.
Yeah, and Cam and I, we talk about, I'm talking about you in the third person. We talk about Vegas a lot because we have a love for the city. But, she got to spend some time in Las Vegas. It wasn't quite as glamorous as she had hoped for necessarily. It turns out she was not really partying on the weekends like you and I clearly do when we go to Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
in bed by 10, tucked in with a hot chocolate.
Right. Yes, reading the classics.
Yeah, the Odyssey or something like that before bed.
You read the Odyssey, I read the Iliad, and then we compare notes.
Just meet in the middle somewhere. That's basically the story.
Our friend can read the Metamorphosis.
Perfect. Yeah, that's it. We've got all three. Yeah, but it's so great to just sort of get someone that was truly there, because you talk about the sort of Connery era and Roger Moore was more your era. This is a time and place in filmmaking and a time and place in Bond history that we are slowly losing contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And to have these stories, to get them from Lana and to have them on tape for everyone to enjoy is genuinely why you and I still do this for 4 years, because we love having these conversations, love finding out new information and confirming things from the past, but just preserving their legacy, and I think this is just such a wonderful way of doing it. I'm so glad we get to do it.
Totally. And to also just have her telling stories about working with John Ford on The Searchers and how he didn't like kids, or how, Jeffrey Hunter was like her angel on the set, the one who would sit and spend all this time with her while they were shooting. These are stories that can totally just vanish, but they're now preserved for the record. And to hear her talk about playing cards with the cast of Mission Impossible, like that's a, single episode of a 60s TV show. When books are written about the history of film and television, one episode of Mission Impossible, not likely to be documented. But to have these stories here and how fun they are when she tells them, talk about Wild Wild West as well, that's the stuff that's great. And I am there for it every time.
Every time. I hope you guys are here for it too. Cam, a highlight for you.
The shark stuff.
Yeah.
Talking to Lana Wood about sharks and her appearance in the Meg Hell's Aquarium novel, and how that's led to just her getting to go pose with a megalodon jaw was incredible. I have seen the photo, folks, and just having that shared moment of connection with a Bond icon about a hobby of mine and clearly a passion for them.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where you have this sort of Bond and shark connection going on between you and Plenty O'Toole, of all people. You just think, like, what world do we live in?
And she missed a shark by one movie. Had she been in Live and Let Die, there would have been a shark for her.
Yeah, that is true, Cam. I mean, you can always imagine what could have happened when Plenty O'Toole met a shark.
That's right. She could have faced down that tiger shark, yeah.
And looking back on our Diamonds Are Forever review, which is always a bone of contention, that review, with a few people, which is always interesting to go back to and listen. We didn't spend a lot of time on Plenty O'Toole.
Right.
But for me, personally speaking, she's one of the bright sparks of the film. She comes in there with that infectious energy. Hi, I'm Plenty O'Toole. And, she's beaming the whole way through. Not the nicest of endings, of course, but, there's such a sweetness to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really Lana bringing that in, her building that character backstory, obviously putting on a bit of a voice there too. But I just think, in a sleazy world that Las Vegas was in the early 70s, late 60s, she's, a ray of light.
Well, there's like a real innocence and naivete to that character that Lana talks about bringing to the backstory. And, it really matches the tone of the movie. It has like a lightly comedic tone that obviously takes a turn in terms of what happens to the character, but all of her scenes where it's her bouncing off of Connery, it's just perfectly pitched. And these two have a lot of chemistry. And so does Jill St. John. Like, they both clearly understand the movie they're in and how to play to that.
Yeah.
And it just feels as a piece, because you can look at Plenty O'Toole and, measure how much screen time she has, which is not a lot. But why do we still reference this character? It's because she clicks so strongly in the screen time she has. And she's part of one of the greatest lines, which is the, I'm Plenty O'Toole. Oh, named after your father, of course. Like, that line is legendary. That's a setup, and she just runs with it.
And I will add, I take no shame in this, but you can all shame me if you like. It took me far too long to figure out what the Connery pun was there.
It's an interesting one.
It's a little esoteric, but I once I got it, it is funny. And I will also point out, folks, go online and find out there's, I think, at least one additional scene that's in the Blu-rays from Diamonds where they're having dinner after they played roulette, I believe. And, you get to see a little bit more Lana. That's on YouTube right now.
Yeah, and she talked about scenes that haven't been released, like her going into Tiffany Case's house and like putting on wigs and things like that. There were details that were just lost along the way, and it's unfortunate. The thing is, like, Diamonds is not a short movie.
No.
It's a little over 2 hours, and when you consider how silly and kind of light that movie is, you don't want it too much over 2 hours. Like, that's probably the right runtime, but clearly, like, when it comes to what was cut, her character was often the one that faced the brunt of those edits. And it's unfortunate, because I think it would have been fun to see more of that character, but what is there is still very memorable.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that we've added a second story to this sort of Diamonds Are Forever series of interviews, because we've had Bruce Glover on the show now. We've had Plenty O'Toole, Lana Wood. I wonder who could be next.
I mean, the thing about Diamonds is it's one of the like wackiest Connery movies, so that actually interests me more
Yeah.
into diving into it and like getting all these stories out of Diamonds Are Forever. Like to me, that is for some bizarre reason more interesting to me than like I don't know Goldfinger.
Yeah, and you and I have been to a bunch of the locations from the film. We've even been to the Slumber Inc.
Yep.
Funeral home or whatever it was. The plots. We've walked down there where Bond gets attacked from behind. Yeah, we're quite dedicated Diamonds Are Forever fans, apparently.
We played the balloon game at Circus Circus.
Yeah.
We've wandered around Fremont and spotted the locations from the car chase. Yeah, like I feel for some reason, even though it was like not one of my all-time favorites when I was young,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the one I maybe have one of the strongest connections to now at this point in my life.
I think, and also just with the show, like it's probably our mascot film in many ways, apart from perhaps Leslie Nielsen's Spy Hard.
Yeah, and every year when we go away to Vegas, we like to put out some sort of like casino or Vegas-themed episode. We had our interview last year with Ivana Milicevic, who was, of course, LeChiffre's girlfriend in Casino Royale. But I do like how we often bounce back to diamonds.
Yeah.
And so who knows what the future holds, right?
Well, you could always have a redux, of course. But I think, again, I want to thank Lana for taking the time to speak with us. It was a genuine pleasure. I hope you've all really enjoyed this new SpyMaster interview, this new Bond chapter. But I think before we let everyone go, I kind of just want to celebrate a little bit about just 4 years, man. I mean, I'm not going to bring the stats out or anything like that, but let's just look at a little bit of what's happening. This episode drops when you and I are in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be together, which is something that happens once a year, usually, sometimes twice.
Not that special, but yeah.
Not that special. No one really likes seeing us together. It's actually really horrible to deal with for most people.
It's true.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. But, you and I are doing our first ever live show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The week this is out. I mean, we're going to see if we can get a hold of the audio for that and maybe put it out at some point or put it on YouTube for you all to check out. Watch us crash and burn. By all means, come along for the ride.
We'll also be on stage talking about Moonraker at one point as well, kind of bringing it all together, yeah.
Yeah, and I just didn't, I said at the beginning, I didn't think we'd necessarily ever get here. And I'm so thankful to everyone who's tuned in, who shared the show, who has spent time with us, loving spy movies as much as we do.
I mean, when we started this show, we were two bored guys during the pandemic, jumping on Zoom and recording the audio off of that. Like, it kind of tells you how meager the beginnings were. And so when we look at where we are now, it would be completely undoable were it not for all of you listening and just the enthusiasm that you give back to us whenever we release episodes like this.
Yeah, and I think before we sort of pivot to what we're doing next week and let everyone know about that, I'm curious because, we keep saying, we never would have thought we'd get here. The 5th anniversary is next year.
Yeah.
Let's go pie in the sky. Who would you like to have on the show in the next year?
Oh my God. Like, I was someone who was ready to wrap up the show completely after we had Rachel Grant on. I'm like, I can't go any bigger than this. So
she was great. What a great interview.
She was awesome. That was so much fun as well. That was one of the really fun early interviews. Oh boy. I don't know. I have to look at the old chart to figure out who we haven't contacted or had on the show yet.
Yeah, I'd love to have some more people from the Roger Moore films.
Yeah, that is kind of some uncovered territory for us largely. We did have Vijay Amritaj on this year, so that was great. But we are going to be covering Roger Moore Bonds, I think, in the relatively near future. So those opportunities are suddenly going to open up even more so. Yeah,
we may be having our sights on some Bond films in maybe this year or the start of next. So we might be going back to Bond after some time with Mission Impossible. So look forward to that, folks. For me, if I was going to pick one, it is a toughie. I don't just want to sort of focus on Bond either. Like there's so many spy films I really do love going back to. But if I'm going to go with Bond, I'm going to go with, I think, someone from the Roger Moore era. That's what I'm going to put my flag in. Folks, I want to hear from you. Let us know. Who do you think we should try and get on next? Who should we set our sights for? Who do you want to hear us talk to? More importantly. But thank you all for joining us to hear our discussion with Lana Wood. I genuinely hope you've had a great time hearing her stories, hearing our stories over the last 4 years as well. And pivoting on to the beginning of year 4, I suppose, then, Cam. What are we tackling next week?
Well, Scott, back in the day, a young Henry Cavill was up for the role of James Bond in Casino Royale. Didn't get the role, but he's moved on to other things. And next week, we're going to talk about one of those other things. We are going to tackle 2024's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, directed by Guy Ritchie, and of course, starring Henry Cavill.
I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's had an interesting release schedule, but the trailer looks really fun, and it's now come to Prime Video basically all the way around the world, so everyone can finally check out this film, and you can join it in with us whilst we check it out. And of course, we actually will have a SpyMaster interview going along with it too. We're sitting down with the author of the book this film is based on, Mr. Damian Lewis, who's going to take us through the real-life story behind the mission that's in the film. The links to James Bond, all that good stuff is coming next week. So your mission, folks, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week as we take a look at 2024's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. If you like what you heard on the show, please consider joining us over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/spyhards, where you can get a bunch of bonus spy jinx in your podcast inbox every week, or at least most weeks. But you can also help keep the lights on here at SpyHards HQ and show your love for your favorite spy movie reviewers. And if you don't already, make sure you follow us discreetly over on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But until next time, folks, you'll find Cam and I in the lab, digitally adding underwear to all of your favorite Bond scenes.